It's the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. I'm Laurie Rivers, your host, here to help you with some inspiration to get those aspirations out into the world. Well, it's a September to remember. Here we are. Uranus went retrograde. Pluto's back in Capricorn. Mars is going to move into Cancer. And that sets the tone of the month. Whew. I'm going to say, maybe you don't want as much caffeine. You might need more, though. I don't know. I don't know what your habits are. So grab your favorite beverage. Get comfy. It's Labor Day. Hopefully you don't have to commute. But if you do, or if you're in traffic, keep those hands on 10 and 2. Maybe talking about the astrology of September. I've been warning you guys for a long time. I'm going to give us some thoughts around what I think is going to happen for various politicians around the world, the weather, you know the drill. And I have a very special guest because I thought with all the craziness and wackiness that we're going to see this month, and it's going to be a weird month. I really thought we needed a voice of soothing and kindness and compassion. And so I invited my very best friend in the world, Kirsten Soga, to come talk about what she does to help people navigate big changes in their life, as she is a coach, which the word doesn't even begin to describe who she is, because she's a very multi-talented person, but she's one of the most kind, compassionate people I know. And I am proud to be her friend. So I brought Kirsten on to talk about us finding our voices, being present in our bodies, and the power that comes from that. And so I think you're really, really going to love that interview, because I think we all need that message, especially as we go through some of these crazy times. And again, it can be crazy in the outer world and just look so intense and so ugly and so awful. And yet it can be a great time for you personally. I just can't emphasize that enough. There is no reason to lean into the doom and gloom. When I'm giving predictions, one, I'm proving my accuracy. Two, I can talk about good stuff all day long and people won't listen. So some of it giving you warning. Also, forewarned is forearmed. One of the reasons I started to really study astrology seriously all those years ago, almost 30 years ago, is because I was like, well, I don't like surprises. Wait a minute. I can look ahead and be a little more emotionally prepared, if nothing else. Great. So take it that way, but don't use it as an excuse to despair, because that leaves you without a lot of your power. Okay. So just know that this can be an empowering time for you. Alrighty. Take a deep breath. Exhale. And let's dive into September together. It's back. Well, Pluto's back in Capricorn until November 19th. For its final encore. And if you're a patron at the magazine level and up as a supporter, then you got the video premiere of Pluto and Capricorn and your survival guide. But what about the rest of y'all? How can I help you? We'll kick back. September is a pretty volatile month. I know there's been psychics and mediums all over the tiki-taki talking about Trump keeling over this month. I'm not convinced he does. That isn't really what I've been seeing in the astrology. I have some old videos done in 2023, maybe even 2022. I'll have to go back through the Patreon, where I talked about him having health crises, though. And I'm still going to stand on it. There's something renal that has something to do with his kidneys, potential strokes, potential, a physical complaint, like a fall, where something might happen in public. His meltdowns have been happening. We talked about those, right? But what else do we expect, right? But there is definitely something health related with Trump. Potential health issues for Biden as we go through September. I'm not sure we'll find out about him, though. Okay. So I know everybody loved his speech at the DNC's convention, but that was a swan song. That was a swan song. And he ended up taking a second week of vacation. And I think it took a lot out of him. I do. Remember, the news doesn't always report things, so we won't know. Although I was informed by a patron who was having lunch with somebody who is connected to the inner workings there at the White House, and apparently confirmed that what I've been saying about Biden's health is very accurate. So that's what's come my direction. But will it be in the news? Probably not. Not yet, until they can't mask anything. So we may find out more about Biden's health this month. We certainly will in October. But we're in September, and it is a September to remember. If you have placements in the late cardinal signs, meaning if you have your ascendant, sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, or Mars, those personal placements in Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, from the degrees of 22 to 29, and not everybody's going to know what that is. If you are a patron, or you go to my YouTube even, I have tutorials on how to figure that stuff out. Okay. Look up Intro to the Natal Chart. Anyway, for those of us born in the late degrees, yes, me too, we're still kicking. Pluto just moved into Capricorn. It's opposite my sun and my Mercury. It's not the same as it was October through January. It's just not. We have other things going on. Mars is in a different place. Mercury's in a different place. Jupiter is in a very different place. And we've got Uranus retrograde, although it was retrograde during that time period pretty much as well. And it is, again, Uranus is retrograde. It went retrograde before Pluto entered Capricorn. So if your Sunday was a little weird, that could be why. So what to expect? Well, we may feel a little bit of pressure. If you've been doing the work on yourself, if you've been taking care of yourself, if you've remained conscious, if you've been working on your deconstruction and reconstruction and building a strong foundation in your inner world, then this is going to be probably a very empowering time. Okay. If you've been resisting it, well, it might be a little uncomfortable because it's the resistance to Pluto transits that cause the problem, not the transit itself. The things that are going away may seem very, very important, including parts of your own identity. And yet, when you actually take a step back and examine it, that may not be the case. It may not be real. An example of that is if you have a strong cultural belief about something. So many years ago, when I realized my second marriage was probably not a good idea for me, I very much resisted the idea of ending it because it would make me a twice divorced woman. My God, shock and horror. And basically the universe dialed up the volume over the years until I had no other option. Staying was not an option because I was getting chest pains when I was in the domicile and when I would leave and go on a road trip. I didn't have chest pains. It became apparently obvious which direction was going to serve me best, to the point where it was physical signs. And I was like, I don't have chest pains when I leave. I have chest pains when I'm at home. Did I tell anybody? No. But it became very clear. Yeah. Yes, I went to the doctor and it was angina, but it was stress related. And it was just signaling I wasn't in a viable space. So it became less and less important about what people thought, right? And if you're one of the people who enabled that relationship, or one of the people who decided I was the bad guy for choosing my own well-being, I don't know why you're listening to my podcast. I find out once in a while that I get lurked upon by those people. And since Pluto is in opposition to my Mercury, I am going to be cautious with the words that I use because they have consequences. However, if you are one of those people, you should go listen to Lily Allen. Alrighty, so I'll stop being petty here. Give you guys something to laugh at. So on a personal level, again, this can be a power-up. It can be a power-up. And you've probably already gone through the hardest parts of these things. And now you get to see how much you've grown, how far you've come. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing. The less conscious people have been, or at the mundane level where there's not a lot of active consciousness, we're going to see some undoings. Okay. And that could mean relationships are undone. It could mean we face physical consequences. So like, let's say you have a bad back and you haven't gotten it looked at or taken care of. You decide to lift something heavy again. Guess what's going to happen? Okay. So take care of yourself. It's that simple. Get it checked out. Okay. Or don't pick up heavy things, right? Don't be like, if you're one of those people going, my back hurts, and then you grab something heavy, use your noodle. Okay. That's part of logical living. We'll put it that way. So learning to ask for help or getting support if you can't afford to go to the doctor or the chiropractor or whatever you go to. So September is going to be fascinating. Just fascinating, I tell you. There's going to be some major world events. We're going to see some undoings of world leaders, various world leaders. I'm thinking Netanyahu's probably not going to have a good time. Trump definitely not going to like September. He's going to dislike October even more. I think for Biden, we might hear about his health this month. I definitely think we're hearing about it next month. September and October aren't real fun for any politician, as Pluto is in Capricorn, and it's reminding us that systems that do not serve the greater whole, okay, or the collective, are going to be crumbling. The Jenga tower is about to fall. And if you've been listening to me for a long time, especially from 2022 and 2023, I've talked about the Jenga tower a lot. I haven't that much through 2024 because the most part of this year, from late January through September 1st, we had a different kind of energy ringing. And so Pluto's come back to be the wrecking ball to knock things out, and Uranus is sticking around in the later degrees of Taurus to help it out. And one of the interesting things is that sextile between Pluto and Neptune is very active with us. I think we're going to see some very large earthquakes as a potential between September and October. I've been warning, maybe 6 months now, about a potential earthquake in Southern California. I think it'll be on the South Nevada border, but it could be something happening in Mexico that is felt in Southern California. So, no, I don't think it's LA proper, although I think LA may feel it. So that is something I've seen in many charts. So like I've doubled and triple and quadruple checked. And, so keep your eyes out there because I think it may be significant and it might mess up roads. So a significant one that will cause damage to infrastructure and roads. When I say significant, it could be in the 7.0 range. No, California will not fall into the sea. Okay. I don't care what anybody said in the 30s or 40s. It's a geologic impossibility for California to fall into the ocean. And sea level rise could make some coastlines go away, but that's not happening just yet. So that's not happening this year. So put your fears at ease. We can be spiritual, and we can do divination and understand there's real stuff that goes with it, right? We can use our noodles. It's important. Looking at Eastern Europe with a big eye right now. Looking at Eastern Europe. Concerned about the Ukraine-Polish-Russia border, concerned about Belarus, concerned about the Balkans a little bit. I know we have listeners from all over the world. I think we're up to like 78, 79 countries. I think we could see some sizable hurricanes, especially as we move post-equinox, and head towards October. I think there'll be some doozies before that, but there'll be some very interesting storms that come up. And we might even see another Pacific hurricane swing into the west coast of Mexico and up into the southwest again as well. We could see temperatures drop in some places like mountain states, and we could see things remain, well, I know they're calling for it to remain dry. I think we're going to have some surprise rain on the West Coast and in the Southwest. I really do. I think it's going to shock some of the climate models, because as Mars moves into Cancer on September 4th, it's going to be driving humidity and driving water. We could see some very strange tides. And yeah. So why don't we talk about the astrology of this month, and I'll explain what it means. It's oh baby, it's a wild one. That's all I've got to say. It is wild times on planet Earth. And we can get through this. We can, and we will. And these are all, I'm going to say it. It's all necessary changes. Okay. Even if it looks ugly getting there, it is necessary change. All right. We got this. All right. Well, we've got some patron shout outs to do, and then I'm going to go through the astrology of September and explain what you're in for. Well, you heard the music. You know what time it is. It's time for some patron shout-outs. I want to thank all of the patrons who've been so patient with me as I took most of July and August to recalibrate, because I was kind of inside out and upside down, and I needed to get myself together before Pluto opposed my Sun and Mercury again. I learned my lesson back October through January. I was like, there's no way I'm pushing. I'm going to get my physical self put together. So there was a lot of rest. So I'm gearing back up to get at speed, and I'll have my reading page up on my link page on TikTok again. And patrons, I will put out your handy dandy discount for readings. I know you've been patient. I was just trying to decide what I was going to do. I'm not opening up your head readings again until December, when I know what my 2025 schedule is going to be, because I might do some travel. I haven't decided. I might go see Matilda in the winter here, so that it's summer there. So, because it might be just really cold where I'm at. But I haven't decided yet. So we'll know more towards December. All right, let's say a big thank you to all of our patrons that have recently joined. We have Isaac, Kaylin, Joy, Loretta, Letha, Kay, Jessica, Christina, Fiona, Melanie, Hope, Michelle, D87, Nickel 914, Amy, Tanya, Mariana, Chandra, Manuela, Fire Breather, Mary, Katie, Jessica, Ashley, Kimberly, Megan, Danielle, Katie, Renee, Tanika, Jackie, Spencer Somehow Knows. That is a great username. Desiree, Deanna, Jen-V, Audrey, Kathy P, Anna, Carrie, Kristen, Stephanie, Ashley, DS Chick, Aaron, Carmen, Hope, Lee, Skylar, Jessica, Jacqueline, Christopher, Jessica, Silver Sphinx, Jinshi, Olivia, Alejandro, Photohead 337, Nikki, Aislinn, Larissa, Kamala, Marlo, Rachel, Wage, Carrie, What Up Though, Liz, Ariel, Jasmine, Jason, Kevin, Paige, Lisa, Jenny, Katie, Ocean Man, Heather, Kim, Vivian, Summer, Lou, Helen, Lexi, Mickey, Austea, I think I'm getting it. Katie, Bianca, Marquesa, Nora, Stephanie, Grace, Kavi, Lily, Tiffany, Jay Crest, Jay, Lacey, Nicole, SKH4444, Oren, Laura, Kinsey, Diane, Jane, Melissa, Natalie, Alex, Lauren, Mary, Rosanid, Victoria, Sherry, Louise, Doris, Janelle, Tease and Floof Theatrical Wig Design. Oh, I have to look at your stuff. Judith, V, Stella, JP, Gigi, Maddie, B, Laura, Allison, Laura, Jacqueline, Bethany, Rhea, Elizabeth, Alyssa, Morgan. No, that's Morgan A and Morgan K. And then Megan, Desiree, Mouthwash, C, Amy, Cindy, Cheryl, Clover, Melinda, Things Jen Says, Candy Moon, Megan, Priesta, Nina, Kayla, Aaron R, Sherry, and Jenny. Thank you all for being our newest patrons. This is a listener-supported podcast. Because of people like you, we stay ad-free. Thank you. Alrighty, let's take a look of the astrology for September, and I have to make myself laugh because when I make predictions, I just kind of let them go, right? I make it, I let it go. I have to go back and look at my notes or find the video, because if I tried to memorize the hundreds of predictions I make every month, my brain wouldn't be able to do anything else. So when I look at the slide with the explainer text, for September, the first thing I wrote is zero chill. Now, I wrote that back in June of 2023. So zero chill. There is zero chill this month. And here's the explainer, and then I'll go through the astrology and why I said what I said. Tempers are hot. Scandals are flying. It's hard to know what's true and false. Globally, we see disasters or big weather. Could see a huge storm, tornado, tropical storm, or big winds for many in different places. So like lots of storms all over the world. Politically, it's out of order, out of line, and there's potential violence, including towards candidates or elected officials. September 16th, we could see a potential earthquake 6.5 or higher in Southern California or the border with Nevada. Okay, actually, I think I put this in December, so it's been over a year I've been warning about this. We could see school closures, teacher strikes, or other labor strikes or walkouts. We could see issues with government funding and fundamentalist activism or nationalist activism. Conflicts escalate after the lunar eclipse, which happens around the 17th, 18th. So that's what I wrote way back. I believe the earthquake is what I saw in before the December event, but it could have been there since June. So September 1st, Uranus stationed retrograde and Pluto is still retrograde and it moved back into Capricorn. Pluto won't station direct until October 11th, which will be a day we'll all remember, but that's a different podcast. September 2nd. September 2nd. Let me check. Where is that? And what are we doing? September 2nd, we have the new moon in Virgo and Mars square Neptune. That, I think we're going to see some sizable storms. We could see some big things go on with that one. We could see a maritime accident of great significance or clashes with Navy vessels. Keep my eye on the Straits of Taiwan. This could even be just like big weather, wind, a typhoon, a hurricane messes with a port or big ships out at sea. September 4th, we have the Mars ingress into Cancer. September 6th, Mercury squares Uranus. Mars moving into Cancer, I'll talk about a little bit later in the podcast. And we're going to really give that some of its time, so that I'm not just blah, blah, blah in here. I'll dedicate a little segment to that because that's some serious stuff. It's not weak. That's something you need to know. Mars square Uranus on Mercury square Uranus on September 6th. Boy, that could be some really big accidents and there could be some amazing foibles. And we may hear about more than one person of note having neurological issues. That could be strokes, embolisms. That would be an embolism isn't really a neurological issue. It can cause that, but neurological issues may be up on deck. Especially people of note will hear about it in the headlines. Remember, just because it's in the headlines doesn't mean it'll happen to you. We will see the sun in opposition to Saturn on September 7th. And with Mercury squaring Uranus and the sun in opposition to Saturn, I'm going to say we're going to maybe see some issues around healthcare. And we could hear, and this could also be around regulations with pharmaceuticals. There could be a scandal around anything to do with pharmaceuticals, the use of pharmaceuticals, the distribution of pharmaceuticals. This might be the efforts to inoculate children against polio in Gaza. Sun square Jupiter is going to be a little bit kind of intense. I think we'll see extremes in temperatures. We could see some real highs in certain places where it gets very, very hot, but we could see temperatures plunge in places, as well. I'm not looking at the news lately. I've been in prediction mode. So then on September 17th, my times are for the West Coast of the United States. So if you're, in Europe, Asia, Australia, this will be the 18th for you. We have the lunar eclipse in Pisces, and it's a partial lunar eclipse. It's more visible in Australia, the continent of Africa, parts of the Near East, and that would be the Levant, up into Eastern Europe, but it's still visible elsewhere. So into the United States as well, but it's lightly touching. This is, I've got information on it in the magazine. The sun is trine Mercury is opposing Saturn on the 18th. I just think we're going to see a lot of transportation problems. I think we're going to see a lot of bridges fail in September. We could see more barges bumping into bridges, but we could see more bridges fail. We could see a large buildings have issues or be demolished. We could see a lot of lies revealed, and certain people that wear toupees and spray tan may have a very difficult time arguing in legal matters. It's not going to hold. Their luck's starting to run out. September 20th, the sun is opposite Neptune. So we've got a lot going on. The sun trine Uranus that's going to fuel some of the instability, even with Uranus retrograde. This is why I'm a little nervous, because those earthquakes can pack even more of a wallop with that. And it could be in Mexico too. So it's hard to pinpoint locations, but I do believe we'll see something significant, potentially up to a 7.0, at least a 6 at minimum. And again, where is it going to happen? It'll be felt in Southern California. Okay, so that could happen in Mexico, it could happen in Nevada, it could happen right on the borders. It's not happening near the ocean. Okay, so it's happening interior. That part I'm pretty sure of. Could I be wrong? Abso-freaking-lutely. Nobody's right all the time. So just be aware, if you're in Southern California, if you're in Western Mexico, Northwest Mexico, just be aware, okay, and prepare, all right? September 21st, Mercury is square Jupiter and the sun is trine Pluto. This is a very volatile day. Very volatile. I think we could see political violence. Now, this could be anywhere in the world. This isn't just in the United States. This could happen in Germany, in France, in the United Kingdom. This could be stabbings. This could be bombs, like pipe bombs, gas leaks, things like that. Now, if it doesn't happen, great. I hope I'm wrong. September 22nd is the autumnal equinox. That's when fall begins. The sun moves into Libra, of course, that day. And we'll have Venus square Pluto, and Venus moves into Scorpio that day as well. So Venus is in Libra. It will be squaring off with Pluto on the 22nd. And then it moves into Scorpio. I think we may see some real stock market volatility, and we may hear about private equity firms in dire straits. They're probably very concerned about the amount of housing on their books. One of the reasons they're going at Kamala Harris for the capital gains tax that she's proposed is it hurts them. It doesn't hurt you and me. There's a caveat to it. So yes, they're going to tax unrealized capital gains if you have more than $100 million in assets. I don't know about you, but I do not have that problem. I do not have that problem. Okay, so yeah, you're going to talk about a policy proposal, then talk about the whole thing. So you may see people start to dump assets as we head through the fall. And we're certainly going to see some problems with private equity firms and any of them that own food processing plants because of all of the horrible stuff going on with Listeria and Salmonella. September 26th, Mercury moves into Libra, which means in the beginning of October, we're going to see some issues with transportation. We could see some big wind once Mercury moves into Libra. On the 29th, Mars is trine Saturn. This could be a very, very interesting day. I think we could see issues with dams. I think we could see big rain. We could even see some snow in higher elevations with that one. And it's definitely going to see naval issues. We could see leaders having to face some consequences. There could be some legal matters up on deck. Definitely financial matters, maybe a big bank under investigation. And then September 30th, we have the Mercury Cazimi. So the Sun and Mercury are sitting right on top of each other. I know everybody loves to make it into something super magical because the name is Cazimi, a la peanut butter sandwiches. I don't know. You certainly can write down your thoughts if you're crystal clear. It's a good day for mental acuity. But I think people, people do anything for views, right? Isn't that right? Right. So that's what's up on deck. There's zero chill in September. Aren't we lucky? Aren't we lucky? We certainly are. Oh my gosh, guys. What wild times there are on this planet. What else do I think is going to happen? Well, I've written my predictions in the Awake Space Astrology magazine. Hopefully it's going to come out on the 2nd. It may come out late, maybe closer to the 3rd, depending on your time zone, because I'm still finishing up the articles. All of the predictions have been done. I was giving it a fine-tooth comb treatment, making sure I got some of those summer predictions out, because a lot of times I'll carry them over for the lunations, like the weather and some of the seismic activity, unless we need to update it. Notice we've got a lot of astrology this month, so I had to go tweak those a little more. I think we're going to see a lot of political violence start up. And again, I've talked a lot about this. Yes, the right is going to be acting up, but I honestly see the left rising up as they realize that it's going to take that to push back some of the Christian nationalists. Very concerning news out of Germany, where there was a hard right win. It wasn't a big win, like they're not going to be in charge, but it's echoey of the past and very concerning. Look, people wouldn't have immigration problems if the Western powers hadn't been destabilizing a lot of the developing world. And I think that's really important. Don't be mad at the people fleeing for their lives. Be mad at the reason why they have to flee for their lives. We're better than this. We're more educated than this. This is the 21st century. Okay. I want to know where Rosie the robot is for cleaning the house. I want to know where my Jetsons car is. But no, instead, we're still having the same fucking arguments we had in 1939. Are you kidding me? For real? For real? It's so frustrating. We'll take a deep breath. Speaking of borders and clashes, I think we might see some issues on the U.S.-Mexico border. I think things might politically heat up there because Mexico paused its diplomatic relations with the United States and Canada because we tried to tell them what they could do with their judiciary. They probably took one look at our Supreme Court and went, F you, MFers. Talk about corrupt. It's like pot, meat, kettle. But, okay. I think another drink of soda would be good. So, when does sweater weather start? I think we're going to get some good sweater weather starting end of September, to be honest. I don't think it's going to remain hot. I think we'll see some cold snaps happen, or at least rainy weather hit in a lot of places on the coasts. If you are east of Chicago East, notice I didn't say east of the Rockies, Chicago East. I want you getting ready for big weather come October. Okay? Come October. Very important. Okay? because I just think the storms are going to be something else. All right. I think it's storms. I mean, it could be political violence. Storms and explosions look a lot alike in astrology. So sometimes it's kind of hard to be sure. It could be both. It could be both. I get asked a lot about what's happening in Israel, Gaza. And, one of the questions I get asked is, when will Palestine be free? And I find that to be a really interesting question, because I'm like, obviously you're new here. I'm glad you're finally aware of the situation. I don't see an end entirely to what is going on and what is happening to people in Palestine until maybe end of 2025, early 2026. I just don't. And I will say, I expect some of the hostilities to expand a bit in the Levant, because I think they're going to do that to deflect away from government responsibility on the genocide. But I do think international law will actually win out finally. You have to remember, we've been breaching international law for a very long time here in the United States with our foreign policy. Thus proving why I didn't become an international lawyer, because boy, was I frustrated as a college student when I realized, wait a minute, law is only as effective as your ability to enforce it. So if somebody's the biggest and strongest bully on the block, and you've got little 98-pound weaklings as the hall monitor or the playground monitor, how are you going to enforce the rule? So, but I think we're going to enter into a time of diplomacy that we haven't seen in many decades. And I'm looking at the astrology, and I think by the end of 2025, we're going to see some measurable progress. Now, does that mean that certain leaders won't face consequences? I think they will. I think they'll face them domestically. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think they will. And in fact, I'll take another look at Netanyahu's astrology for the patron-only podcast this week. I'll do that. Because his solar return wasn't great. His solar return wasn't great at all. And now that the protests have really kicked up, I'm like, well, there it is. Because his birthday is in October. And it's coming up. And his next solar return, because I just looked at that a little while ago, a couple of weeks ago, is very litigious. He looks like he's in court. So he may even have to flee the country, and it'd be interesting to see if we give him asylum, which would be a shame. But he very much may have a problem. Putin could see some interesting times coming up. It could be health. It could be stress in domestic policy. So Putin's not having a fun month either. So any kind of autocrat is going to have some struggles in September. It couldn't happen to a nicer group of oligarchs. As for folks like you and me, again, if you've been doing the work, I don't think you have anything to worry about. You do need to work on focusing on retaining your own stability, your own sustainability, your own physical safety. Okay, so depending on where you live, you want to make sure you have arrangements for the weather. It's very, very important. All right. Coming up next is an interview with my very good friend, Kirsten Soga. Before I put that segment in here, though, let me tell you a little bit about Kirsten, because I think she's a little too humble. I've known Kirsten for over 10 years now, and she's truly my best friend. I've brought her up before. I've always said, I'm not into women, but if she needed something, I would marry her so she could get it. Okay, that's how much she is my bestie. I love her, Oodles. And part of why I love her is because she is a dedicated server. She is somebody who has the will to good. She is someone who is dedicated to elevating consciousness. She is someone who is dedicated and her own. She's not here to tell anybody else how to live, but just she works on herself diligently. And she's an amazing coach, and she's a best kept secret. Like, people do not realize how amazing this woman is, how well she holds space for people. And she's truly one of the most loving human beings I've ever met in my life. And no one can be too much for her, or too intense, or not enough. Okay. She's really got the essence of healing down. And I'm not talking about physical healing. I'm talking about emotional healing. And one of the things she really specializes in is women who are transitioning greatly in their lives, whether you're leaving a marriage, whether your kids have grown and you're trying to figure out what's next, you're an empty nester, or you just got married and you're trying to navigate the world and career, and maybe you've had a kid, whatever big changes we have in our lives, maybe you're not happy in your career anymore and you need to change it. Kirsten is literally one of the best transition coaches I've ever met when it comes to life changes. She's held space for a lot of people, and she's one of the least judgmental people that I know. She's got a group coaching program coming up, and it goes for 5 weeks. And we talk about it a little bit in the interview. I want you guys to go check out her website. Okay. If you've been looking for a life coach, if you've been looking for someone who can help you find your voice, align into who you are, Kirsten is phenomenal. You guys know I don't have too many guests on this podcast because I know how much you trust me, right? So, when I have somebody on, it's because I intend to support that person. So Kirsten is really one of my BFFs. She is my BFF. For real. Love her, Oodles. I would love you to check out the interview that's coming up next, and you can hear for yourself what a magical being she is. And if you were ever looking for a fairy godmother, I swear Kirsten's it. I'm really excited. I have a very, very special guest today. You guys have heard me talk about my BFF in real life, and I got her on the show. Hi, Kirsten.
Hi, Laurie. I'm really so good excited to be here.
Oh, I'm excited. So we're having you on because the rest of this episode, I'm talking about the astrology of September, which is a little wild. And you are one of my very, very favorite people. And you also happen to be, well, first of all, I don't know anybody more loving, more kind, more caring, more fierce than you. And you are also certified in a jillion things. So just to call you a certified coach isn't enough to describe all of who you are, but you help so many people, especially women who are in transition, women who are seeking their voice. You can handle a lot because you could handle my intensity. I'm intense. I know I don't always look like it, but I'm intense, and you just breathe it in and spit it out like it's nothing. Which is cool when you've been told you're too much for a long time. So thank you. Wow. I love you.
You're never too much.
Oh, thank you, dear. So I want people to know about you and what you help people with, because you are a best kept secret, and that is not fair. And I think in times like we have moving through September and October and into 2025, people really need a lot of the tools and skills that you bring to the table, a lifetime of study, every bit as much as me in your fields. So What's the one piece of advice you could give people for kind of navigating these crunchy times?
Learn to feel into your body. Let your body give you messages. A lot of people feel something and then right away skip to a thought about it. And instead, why not take a breath and feel, where is this in here? Where is this in this instrument that is here for me to help me? Right?
Give me an example. Like somebody feels something right away. Like, is it that gut clench or the tightness in the throat?
Yeah. I used to feel a lot of stuff right here before I learned how to actually speak, before I learned to speak what was on my mind instead of tailoring it to the people who are listening, especially the large man I was married to once. So if you feel, an example, if you feel like your throat tightens up, go into it. Don't go away from it. Go right into it and say, with my senses, what is this? Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it tight? Is it loose? Is it big? Is it a color? Is it small? Just try and describe it in sensory terms. And that helps your brain pay attention to it without resisting it. And then it can move. It can move the hell out of there. It can't move while we're saying,
yeah, no, it's not good to feel that, or, oh, I never can speak my truth, or those thoughts that come up. Yeah. So I would say that's something you very much specialize in, is helping people release resistance patterns, through a variety of tools. Having benefited from that. And we have cross training. That was one of the ways we became friends. We're like, no way, you studied that too. Because that's really weird and not many people know about it. Right.
Going back to certain books we read as 10-year-olds.
As kids. Yeah. As kids. How crazy,
Yeah.
And so I think people have been taught to rationalize things. What are your thoughts on that? Like when people, they immediately jump to the thought. What does that do for people when they do that?
Well, it's not your point of power. It's not where things move. It's a place where most of us have a lot of resistance patterns in our thinking. And it's easy to just get stuck and go circling around and around and around the same thoughts, and nothing moves. So not really fun.
No, it's not. And so when we talk about the thought cycling, that's like telling the same story over and over, right?
Yeah. So the way to get to a new story, in my way of working, is to feel the feeling, breathe a bit with it, notice it in whatever way it is, let it move, shift, because emotions are named that because they move. If we let them, and let it move and shift, and then see where you are. What do you feel like doing from here? It's a different place.
And without judgment, right? I mean, you're so good at that. You can just be so present with people. I lived with Kirsten. I was going through my divorce, and there were many big feelings.
Yes, there were. And it's all okay. There in me, there is no judgment about any feeling or any emotion. We want to be able to consciously choose the expression, right? I was married to somebody who couldn't do that. That was kind of a shit show for a long time, right? But when I got strong enough, I noticed, I was like, oh, yeah, the feeling's fine. I'll accept the feeling, but I am no longer accepting that expression.
Right. Coming at you. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I'll never forget, I was really angry. And when you're socialized female, and you're often taught that anger isn't acceptable. And when you're really intense and you have a fiery temper, it tends to get you in trouble growing up.
Yeah.
And I really was just bursting, but I was trying to contain it because other people were in the house. And you were like, just give it to me. You just looked me straight in the eyes. Just give it to me. And I was like, "Ah." Right, son of a bitch. But it was cathartic. And then we could go in and work from there. So what do you say to people who feel guilty about their feelings or feel guilty about their emotions?
There are no wrong feelings. There are no wrong emotions. Every emotion is here to serve us. Every feeling is here to serve us. We only get into problems when we dam them up, call them wrong, and try and wall them away, or the opposite, vent them upon everybody around us with abusive words or whatever. That's not okay either, right? We don't want the closing off or the streaming out unconsciously. We want to choose our time and place, let it go through us, maybe with a good friend. It's the best way, maybe alone.
Or somebody who's, a good friend who knows how to be supportive because
not on top of, don't do it on somebody who isn't expecting it, doesn't know how to deal with it. A therapist, a counselor, a trusted wise person, paper, clay.
So you have been working as a coach for over 10 years and you've facilitated many healing modalities for what, 30?
25, 30. Yeah.
When you're working with someone who's looking to make the change and they don't know where to start, they just know they need to make a change. Things aren't working where they're going. What's one of the first things you do to see how they can be helped? Because again, with a lot of modalities, you have a lot of tools in your toolbox.
One of the first things I do is listen. I listen for a while and I ask them questions and I give them water and I make them feel safe or tea. And I listen some more because I learn so much when people tell me what's been going on. And I listen to their tone of voice and I watch their body language and I feel with my intuitive senses into what might be that they haven't spoken yet and ask them questions. So, listening is the biggest beginning.
You're really good at letting people be where they are.
I'm okay with where they are. Yeah. I'm comfortable in myself enough to stay grounded, even when somebody tells me really distressing things about their past history or whatever. It's, I can get into this space. I'm not always in it in my daily life, right? Sure. But when I step into coaching or healing work, I step in and I ask for guidance and I connect to myself in all directions so that I'm resourced.
Exactly. Yeah. It's so important. You have such a healing presence, a calming presence.
Thank you.
You do, I tell everybody that. I always say you're the most loving person I know because you really hold acceptance for people. Doesn't mean you put up with shenanigans or bad treatment.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. You have really good boundaries, ma'am. You worked hard for those. I think you said something really important just there. Like you're not there in your daily life. You're a human being. We're all human. And whether we're healers, counselors, coaches, we're human. We have shitty days. And you're going through these crunchy transits too,
Yep.
We do a couple of things together to help kind of shift our mindset. What's your favorite?
Well, I love the recent co-creative coding to get through those intense spots we were both in, where we connected with the beings of nature and our higher selves and all the other beings that were here to help us and wrote and thought and talked and bead and felt and breathed and did whatever we did to get through it. That was good.
Absolutely. And it really helped. That was good. And just for our listeners, the coning Kirsten's referring to is called map coning. And it's a process that was developed by Michelle Small-Wright. years and years and years ago. And I don't know, I learned about it in 1999. You probably had it before me. Um, but
Yeah.
most people don't know about that. It's one of those really kind of fringe healing processes.
Mm.
That was kind of popular way in the 80s and 90s. So that was one of our no way, you two.
Yeah.
Things.
I
It's a
just looked her
really
up.
useful.
I
Mm-hmm.
just looked up Michelle Smallright. She's 79 years old,
Oh wow, she's the same age
still
as my
going
dad.
strong.
Wow, she's amazing. Her story is really cool, and the technique is really really useful, and it's especially useful when you have somebody who's very good at facilitating. So you can do it on your own, but I find it's often helpful to have a neutral third party because we tend to create our own little obstacle courses for ourselves, don't we? We all do. Um, you've got a coaching program coming up where you're going to do 5 weeks with a bunch of lucky people. Let's talk about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's called Find Your Voice.
Mm,
And it's going to be 5 weeks, hour and a half or so per time, some hopefully communication in between as people are going
hmm
through it. And mm, it is a lot easier to speak up for yourself and to accomplish what you want to do in the world when you're not cutting yourself down inside
hmm
yourself all the time. So we'll
hmm
be working on that self-talk and first observing, right? Because
Right.
many people don't consciously hear that critical voice
hmm
inside their head.
hmm
It just stomps them down bit by bit
hmm
by bit
hmm
with like
hmm
subconsciously. But you can
hmm
learn to hear it and you can
hmm
change it.
And you're really good at teaching people how to see that
Thank
because
you.
you might, yeah, you are. Because even if you've done a lot of work on yourself, you'll have reflexive speech patterns that
Right.
reflect the social cultural conditioning. And astrologically, right now, through November is literally the best time to do some cleanup work on your deconstruction of your social programming because we've got Pluto back in Capricorn. I know everybody's scared of it, but here's one of the good ways to be able to use it is for deconstruction. But as you're very well explaining, you have to reconstruct as well. So what do you do once you identify it?
Well, first of all, don't fight it because if you
Mm-hmm.
fight it, it's going to go right back
Yep.
at you.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And first, notice. Yeah, notice,
Mm-hmm.
notice, notice, notice. Write it down, find it out, figure out which ones are happening a lot. Um, I'm doing a layer right now where I say I'm sorry way too much still. So
Mm-hmm.
it's going. I'm noticing
Mm-hmm.
it. I'm loving it. I'm loving myself. I'm working
Mm-hmm.
on the next thing you do is to substitute something.
Yes.
So instead of I'm sorry, which is the female trained, inculcated way of not taking up space, I'm
Mm-hmm.
starting to say, excuse me, when
There
I
you
do
go.
something that I feel like was not the most skillful thing, whether it was physically
Mm-hmm.
or verbally. Um,
Mm-hmm.
just substitute something else and give yourself lots of compassion in not
Mm-hmm.
being perfect, in changing it
Mm-hmm.
immediately. Don't we all want
Mm-hmm.
that? I noticed it. I saw it. I want to change it
Mm-hmm.
now. Right?
Mm-hmm. Giving yourself compassion is
Yes.
one of those things that is easily said, right?
Yes. So building habits of compassion.
Mm-hmm.
I like to
Mm-hmm.
recommend that people meditate because for me, that's one
Mm-hmm.
of the most effective things that I
Mm-hmm.
do. It
Mm-hmm.
creates not just for that 15 minutes, honestly, sometimes it's 10 or 8, but
Mm-hmm.
pretty much every morning I sit quietly. This golden
Mm-hmm.
light comes on in my head and I stay with
Mm-hmm.
it. It's easier to find the calm in other
Mm-hmm.
times when you've felt it every day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gives you something to ground into.
Yeah.
So in the coaching program, you're going to help people not only identify maybe where they're stuck, or they have a pattern of diminishing themselves, or they're not as kind to themselves.
Right.
And then you have exercises you're going to walk people through to learn to be a little kinder, right? To have that
Yeah,
compassion. Mm-hmm.
definitely. And different exercises will resonate with different people. So I'll probably teach at least one per class, because some people are really kinesthetic, some people are really toward the sound, some people are visual. It's all about your senses and the way that your mind works. So yeah, we'll teach.
And you're a Waldorf teacher. I mean,
Right.
you're not currently acting as one, but I think once a Waldorf teacher, always a Waldorf teacher. And you did that, what, 28 years?
Eurythmy, which is an art form that Rudolf Steiner birthed into the world. And it changed my life, my body, built arches in my feet, broke up my marriage, all kinds of wonderful things.
All the good things. Having lots of different modalities to meet people's needs. What do you think the biggest outcome people can get from being able to really authentically resonate with themselves, which leads to being kinder, more compassionate, but also finding their voice and speaking their truth? In your experience of working with people, what are some of the outcomes people get with that?
Sometimes people quit their jobs and get a different one that's much more suitable. Sometimes relationships shift, either with family members. Sometimes there's somebody who really does need to not be listened to so much in your life. Sometimes there's somebody who does. Sometimes there's an imbalance of communication, and you finally find your way to balance it out. There might be a job that you want that all of a sudden seems possible instead of impossible, because now you're here more. There's nothing more powerful than a really present human being. Nothing. It's the most powerful thing on the planet.
Yeah. You're really good at teaching people how to be in that space, to be present inside the body.
Thank you.
Easy enough. But a lot of people say the word, like, be present, you know. We use a lot of words: resistance, presence, truth, alignment, and it doesn't often get well described. And we can talk about it all day long, but what I've noticed is you're really good at helping people just do it and feel it. What made you focus on it that way?
Well, for 40 odd years, I was round-shouldered, pigeon-toed, flat-footed, not confident, and very, very critical of myself. But I went toward the joyful things. I did do that. And it took me into creating a co-housing development in West Seattle. It took me into eurythmy classes. I remember the night that my eurythmy teacher told me I could do the training at my advanced age. I burst into tears because, I wanted it so much. So I just kept going toward the things. I'm going to take the just out. That's another thing women do. They minimize their statements. I went toward the things that brought me joy, and I kept doing it. Create gardens everywhere I go. I could show you the 6 foot, 7 foot tall begonia in my corner here. I just keep doing the things that are joyful, Laurie. That's all. And I love coaching people because they make progress and they become more of themselves, more individually themselves.
So helping people unfold into themselves. When you've been somebody who's really interested in making the world a better place, and most of us start out with trying to change the world, which makes you really tired at some point, if not angry and resentful at another point. And I think a lot of people are feeling that right now, as it seems like the solutions are pretty obvious, to a lot of the world's problems, and yet they persist. But having studied a lot of energy work, metaphysics, what do you know about helping the individual find themselves? What does that do for the world?
There's nothing more powerful than a truly present human being on the planet. That is the only thing that changes anything. So if you feel selfish, don't. If you want to heal yourself, do. If you want to become everything you've ever wanted to become, do it. It helps. There's nothing harmful.
It adds to the collective experience. Each one of us that heals brings us forward,
yes,
as a collective. So it isn't selfish. It's the most selfless thing you can do,
right?
Is heal. And having a wonderful guide makes a massive difference. Okay. It makes a massive difference. I've had guides. Kirsten's been one of those. We've guided each other. And if you don't, it's not like you can't heal, but it takes longer. So I really want to encourage you guys. How much room do you have in your program?
There's 10 spots, and I just put it on the website today, so they're all open.
Oh, wow. Just 10.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you think I could do 15 and give everybody what they need? I might. I think 10 is good for this time.
I think 10 is good. So I'm going to have the link to your program.
Yeah.
And I'm going to you've got a special discount code. And because you only have 10 spots open, I'm actually just going to throw that into the Awake Space, for patrons. And they're just going to have to jump on it to get the code to save 20% because you don't have very many spots open. You also do private one-on-one sessions, right?
I do. Yes. And I do have some space in my private coaching. Yeah. I love coaching individuals too. It's, I have one client I just adore the changes that they're making in their lives every week almost. It's just, so much fun. So much fun.
Well, again, I can give a testimonial. Now, you and I were already friends.
Right.
But I had been your coach, the business coach. And again, my divorce year. And I needed a place to be.
Right.
And this was a Pluto transit. This was really fun. There were multiple things going on. But I was not necessarily the Laurie you're hearing now. I was very embattled, very stressed out, a hell of a lot skinnier because I couldn't eat. I was so stressed out. I wish I could lose weight like that, not stressed out. And when I showed up, because I'd driven about 1,000 miles to get to your place, and I was pretty road ragged. I was shot. And you had a fire pit in your front yard, and we were sitting outside of it. It was a little cool, not too cool. And I was literally sitting hunched on the ground. I'll never forget this. I had a long sweater on and I was covering myself very protectively because I was very vulnerable. I was losing almost every relationship that was important to me to move into my purpose. And it was at the time, a very terrible sacrifice is how it felt at the time. By the way, all the meaningful relationships, guess what? They stayed. I didn't lose them forever. But I didn't know that at the time. Yeah. And as I sat in front of you, and I thanked you because I was really reduced to nothing. I didn't really own the car I was driving. I owned my laptop. That's and my clothes.
Yeah.
That was, even the phone wasn't in my name. And so I'll never forget feeling embarrassed and ashamed that I had landed myself that vulnerable with nothing, no money. I think I had $30 left, no possessions, pushing 50, choosing my freedom. And not just for me, but to be of service, to do what I'm doing now effectively. And just being so vulnerable, and you sitting in your chair in front of the fire pit and just holding that beautiful steady gaze. I'm going to cry. And you said you're wanted more than you know.
Yes.
There was no question. There was no, when are you going to get a job? There was no, when are you going to get a divorce? There was no, when's the paperwork getting signed? What is the next 5 years like for you? Which is what everybody was doing. And I was like, I don't know what tomorrow looks like. And you just held that space for me. And we're okay with my vulnerability.
It was easy, Laurie.
I see you always say that. And that's your gift, though.
Mm-mm.
That's your gift. Because I can honestly say I have never been held like that. Without condition.
Yeah.
And you did.
Oh.
And you do it for your clients. I've watched it over and over. Because again, we lived with each other for about 8 months. But to have somebody be able to hold that space and that presence that you spoke about, holding that creates space for other people to find theirs. And you do that so well. And again, I've been involved in spiritual communities all of my adult life, religious communities before that. I have never known anybody to so beautifully create those containers for other people. And so I really want to encourage my listeners, if you get a chance to sign up to coach with Kirsten, if you're making a life change, whatever it is, right? It's okay. We have a grandbaby. Whatever it is.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry.
You want to sign up. Yeah.
This is Emmett.
Yeah, this is Emmett. This is Kirsten's grandbaby. Hi, Emmett. You're a big boy now. Hi, you're a big boy now.
Yes.
So I did Emmett's astrology hours after Emmett's birth to help clue in Emmett's mama and grandmama on how to guide this very, very bright being through life.
Yes, so. It's useful every day.
Well, thank you for being my guest, Kirsten. Thank you for making a cameo, Emmett. It's always good to see you. I am not going to lie, I'm so biased, but isn't she wonderful? Wasn't that a great interview? And it was so fun to have Emmett, her grandson, pop in briefly. And I really did read his astrology chart hours after his birth and gave his mama and his grandmama advice on how to raise this bright, beautiful boy who starts school very, very soon this week. Can't believe it. And he's going in a level ahead of his age group because he has been so well loved and so well supported. Bright little bug. Bright little bug. Such a cutie. Alrighty. We're going to talk about Mars in Cancer and why that adds some complexity to the Pluto and Capricorn situation. So Cancer and Capricorn are opposites. They're the sister signs. They're cousins. They're an interesting polarity. In mundane astrology, Cancer rules the people, the population, and Capricorn rules the leadership. All right. And we've lived in hierarchical structures since 200 years into the Bronze Age. That's a fact. It was not always how human beings have lived. So it's not a natural order, regardless of what somebody wants to tell you. Okay, there's nothing natural about hierarchy. It's learned behavior, and it's been going on for a long time, so it appears to be natural. Again, Mars rules the people. So with Mars moving through Cancer, it will oppose Pluto and Capricorn, but not until starting around October 18th into like November 1st. Okay, so Halloween is a shit show. Be careful. All right, we'll talk about that as we get closer to it. Until then, like through September, especially as we move through the next week and a half, we have Mars squaring off with anything in Libra. Okay. So we have Venus in Libra right now. And so Mars is going to be squaring off with that. That could be also some financial markets, because everybody forgets Cancer is a financial sign as much as Capricorn is. But Cancer rules production. Okay. Cancer rules production. Capricorn would rule the management. Okay. And the infrastructure would be Capricorn, whereas Cancer would be the people working for a company. So we may see some interesting things happen in the world this next week and a half when it comes to private equity firms, when it comes to like the Treasury Department or the Fed, banks could be in for it. And I'm looking at Deutsche Bank. I'm looking at BOA. I'm looking at Wells Fargo. Because, my God, how could no one know that woman was dead? Like, are you kidding me? And for all of you who want it to go back to normal, that's the norm. That you have such a big organization that nobody knows who anybody else is if they don't sit right next to them. Are you kidding me? Where's the humanity? Politically, it's going to be hot. It's going to be very, very hot. Hot to the touch. What do I think is going to happen at the debate? I'm not utterly convinced that there's going to be a debate. If there is, between Harris and Trump, if there is going to be a debate on the 10th, I don't know that it's the best day for Trump himself, although I hope he doesn't duck out of it just for entertainment purposes only, because he's not going to even hold a candle. I mean, she argues for a living. She has Mars in Leo in the 3rd house. Do you really think he's going to win against that? I just don't think so. And she's going to hit him in every weak spot because her Mars slams right into his 12th house. So she might spill some beans. But yeah, could be interesting. September is not Trump's favorite month. That Mars in Cancer action is going to be pinging through the end of his 10th and then into his 11th house. And he's really fighting for his reputation at this point, which is getting trashed. Somebody tagged me in a TikTok video saying, hey, you said there'd be a mole in his campaign. And I was like, well, I said that for the convention, that there was more than one double agent. And I'm sure there's moles in his campaign. I think there's more than one, And I think J.D. Vance might be one of them. I certainly don't think he changed his mind about Trump and whether he liked him or not. I think Vance liked Peter Thiel's money. I'm not convinced he's there to do anything more than help Trump not win. Why? I don't know. By the way, I think Musk is going to be having a harder time. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. But yeah, it's very, very interesting what's going to happen with Mars in Cancer. If you have Cancer placements and you're worried about Mars going over them, again, it's down to, have you been doing the work? Are you paying attention to your body? Are you paying attention to your energy levels? Are you overly concerned with what everybody else is doing instead of what you're doing? Because if you're pointing your fingers out at the rest of the world and you're not taking any kind of action to better yourself, make yourself more comfortable, if you're just complaining about how things are instead of trying to make a dent in the problem. And it doesn't have to be huge. Some problems are bigger than we can fix, right? Some problems are bigger, much bigger than we can fix on our own. We can join with other groups, but if you don't like the people in the groups, what are you going to do? We're not going to like everybody. Okay. And if we have these arbitrarily high standards that we're going to hold everybody to, it makes it very difficult to collaborate, if we find offense at different things. So, find something that you can put your energy into if you're like a Cancer rising. If you're a Cancer sun, this could energize you. Be careful that you don't fray your wiring. Sun and Mercury and Moon with Pluto in opposition if Pluto is opposed. I want to remind you, if you're born like June 22nd, 23rd, 24th to like July 15th, this is probably not doing anything for you. So pay attention to your own shitty decisions if you're having consequences. That was a joke. It was a joke. Calm down. Sheesh. But yeah, blaming Pluto transits. Like, it's not a 16-year karmic cycle. I went over this in the Pluto video that I did for patrons at the magazine level and up. It's not about a karmic cycle. Okay. That's not what it is. This is people completely being reductionist and oversimplifying a very complex subject. But Pluto moving through Capricorn is not a cycle. It's part of the entire cycle. The cycle would be Pluto's orbit around the sun, which takes 250 years plus, like 258, something like that. 16, 20 years, 20 years, 20 years, 20 years, 16 years. That was it. It wasn't a cycle. And it wasn't all your karma. Sometimes shitty things just happen. It's not karma. Way to blame the victim. Sometimes stuff just sucks. And sometimes it's the resistance. In fact, almost every time it's the resistance that causes the problem. We can't do much about circumstances, but we can do a lot about how we meet circumstances. And that's really going to be putting a lot of people to the test over the next 6 weeks. Okay. So what you do now with Mars in Cancer really sets up your 2025 though, because Mars isn't going to be in Leo for long in December. It slides back, it retrogrades, and then it goes back into Cancer in January, and it stays there forever. We are going to be so sick of Mars in Cancer. So sick of it. And I'm a Cancer. But I'm like, really? That much Mars in Cancer is a lot. Really? And with the amount of Pisces energy in March, oh, good sweet Jesus, give us a break. That's a conversation for another podcast. Look at me. I'm torturing you this week. Pluto's back. I don't know about you, but I felt a rush of energy. I was like, oh, I like you. I was like not sure about how I was going to deal with it because January sucked a lot of this year. Oh man, October through January, it was like swimming through concrete. But I also had Jupiter on my natal Saturn, so that may have been part of that. Maybe a lot. But no, I feel ready. I feel ready to be solid and grounded and just watching what's going on in the world, being ready to help you guys through it. So Mars in Cancer, we can expect some women to commit violence in some different ways. So there might be like a really interesting murder happen like mid to late month. This could be somebody who suffered domestic violence. This could be just somebody who'd had enough. This could be somebody who doesn't, obviously have a great handle on their consciousness, but definitely we might see more violence committed by women. Domestic violence is going to be really up in the news, sadly, as we move through the month of September. Let's see what else. And that could be about there might be, I think Walls is going to be under a lot of pressure. I know Harris is going to be under a great deal of pressure with Mars in Cancer. She's going to be fighting for her values. So I think there's stuff going on behind the scenes that she's battling for her principles and her values. I think you'll be very, very surprised when she does win and is in office, not part of another administration, and what positions she actually does hold. I think that will surprise you. And I went through that in the 44-minute presentation I did for patrons. It's the pinned post. I kind of went through that there. I think she's going to be hard pressed to continue a certain kind of rhetoric. Okay. So that's something you have to look forward to. I think Walls will be under a great deal of pressure. I'm pretty sure he's a Cancer rising. We don't have a birth time for him, but just in watching his body language, reading through old posts before he was ever a presidential candidate, looking at his personal life, he's got a fairly well documented timeline of events. I'm pretty sure he's a Cancer rising. So, he's going to be fired up pretty soon, especially maybe towards mid-September. I think he's going to be increasingly in a position of self-defense. For Harris, I am concerned about her physical safety and potential safety of her family. Okay, of her family. And that includes in-laws and her husband, So I think there could be some things going on with that. J.D. Vance has something happening soon when it comes to something that matters a great deal to him. I can't decide if it's his wife, there's something happening with her, or there's an event, or it could be the loss of prestige. Something weird's going to be happening with the campaigns this month or next month. There's some odd things going on. Like I said, I think a delay in the election could be likely, but I don't see an election being canceled. Okay. So I just think there might be a delay. It might have to do with ballots. It might have to do with litigiousness. But that's another podcast. Oh my gosh, there's so much going on. So weather-wise, be careful. Be careful if you're on cruises. Be careful. Keep your eye out. Pay attention to travel advisories. Pay attention to your intuition. And don't freak out about Mars being in Cancer. It can energize you. But again, you have to use your noodle. All right. It's a thing. Think before you take action. Just really think about it. Always ask yourself, what's my objective? What do I want to get out of this? What do I want to get out of this? Like, am I going to get what I want out of this? Because if I'm going to lose my temper, like, for what? Just to feel justified? Is it worth the expenditure of energy? Sometimes. Maybe it's worth the consequences. I remember when I was a kid, because I was raised with that line of thinking. It's like, think about it. Do you want to face the consequences? And they asked the wrong kid. My parents. Don't ask me rhetorical questions. I will answer them. And it was like 9. And I don't remember what it was. It could have been, I walked to the store. I wasn't supposed to walk to the store by myself because it was a very busy road and crossing the road was dangerous. But I had babysitting money. So I could babysit small children without any supervision, but I couldn't cross a road. But make it make sense. It was the 80s or 70s. So I had my babysitting money, and I had been looking at some peanut butter cookie box mix. And in my family, we made cookies from scratch, but that box mix looked so good. The picture on that box, oh my God, it looked good. So I was very proud of myself, and I don't know how much money I had, but I traipsed my little hiney up to the store across the busy road and got my cookie mix, marched my little hiney back to my grandma's house where we were living because we were taking care of my grandpa who'd had a stroke. And I demanded she make cookies with me. I was like, you will teach me how to do this. And she had never used box cookie mix before. She was like, I've never done this. We'll learn together. And so we made cookies. My grandma was not the cookie and milk grandma. I was like, nope, you're going to be a grandma. Let's do this. But when my mom found out I had walked to the store, she was really mad. Like so mad that she made my dad talk to me, which just the thought of that was terrifying. When your father gets home. And my dad was like, you have to think about the consequences before you do things. And I was like, hey, I did. I got peanut butter cookies out of this. I'll take the consequences. Because I'd already eaten the cookies. What are you going to do? Taking them away? I didn't say that part. I would have had my ass handed to me. But I was like, I did think about it. It was worth it. You're grounded. Okay. That means I stay in my room. Okay. You know, they were very disappointed that they didn't get screaming and crying and gnashing of teeth. Because I'm like, I don't know. I got to eat my cookies. Made sure before you people found out. So yeah, sometimes it's worth the consequences. But unless cookies are involved, is it worth expending the energy? You know, I looked both ways before I crossed that road. Actually, multiple times. It did not treat it like a game of Frogger. Okay. And if you don't know what Frogger is, you're very young. Go look it up. Alrighty. That's what I got for you this week. I hope you enjoyed the wonderful conversation I had with my best friend, Kirsten, who is one of the most amazing, loving human beings, who is a brilliant coach. Again, she helped me at a very important time in my life. We were already friends, but it wasn't just because we were friends. I've watched her work with people for many years, and I've seen the results and the confidence they gain in who they are and the strength of their voice and the quality of life that they get after working with her. And she should not be a best kept secret. So if you're shopping for a coach, Kirsten Soga is someone who is exceptional and phenomenal and really, really worth working with. And she will enrich your life just in the knowing of her. So make sure you check out the show notes, and I'll put the code for the discount it's a 20% discount for the coaching program. And I'll put that in my Patreon chat. I'll just put it in the Awake Space Lounge. So alrighty, guys, thanks so much. I'll try to go live this afternoon or evening on TikTok, Monday, September 2nd. All right. Thanks, guys.